Hey everyone, it's Nate from Konnected here. I'm in my garage today and we're going to do an install video for the GDO White. This is the second generation of our garage door opener product, and the white is for a dry contact garage opener, which means basically any brand except for the newer Chamberlain and LiftMaster garage openers that can trigger with a contact closure or dry contact. If you have an older garage opener or a non-Chamberlain, non-LiftMaster brand that responds to a contact closure trigger, the GDO White is for you. This product is designed with an optical sensor. That little window in the front has an optical laser, and that means that it can measure the distance between the device and a solid object in front of it. So it's designed for a garage like this, your typical suburban American garage with the sectional rolling garage opener that goes up vertically and then horizontally. And what we're going to do is mount the GDO White on the ceiling, so when the garage rolls up, then it can see the garage opener, or see the top of the garage from the ceiling, and that's how this can detect if the garage is open or closed without having to need to wire any additional sensors or anything like that. Now, it does also have a couple of extra inputs for a wired sensor, and then an extra output for an external strobe, and then an aux power output for any, if you wanted to add a motion sensor or something else like that. We'll go over some of those features, but not all of them today. We want to just do the basic installation, which is really simple. It should only take us about 10 or 20 minutes. So first, let's get up on the ladder and take a look at the Genie garage opener. And I can show you what I mean by a contact closure, a dry contact trigger. So let me grab my ladder and I'll meet you up there. All right, I'm gonna just take off this plastic cover on my garage opener so we can get a look at the wiring terminals inside there. Now here's where the thing is wired up. So a typical garage opener has 4 wire terminals like this. A couple are going to these first 2 are labeled STB, which stands for safety beam, and that's going to the IR beam that's at the bottom of the garage, which is pretty much required on all garage openers in the United States since the mid-1990s, I think. So you're likely to have that. And then the other 2 terminals here are labeled BWC, which stands for, I think, button wall console or something like that, which basically means the wall button that's by the door where you enter the house. And that's what we're going to tap into, and that's what I mean by a dry contact closure. So a traditional button, when you press it, all it's really doing is tapping 2 wires together like that, and then when that happens, that's called a contact closure, and then that triggers the garage to open. If you're not sure, there's a simple test. I've got a metal paper clip. I'm just going to unbend it. You could use a wire or a little piece of scrap wire, anything like that. And what we're going to do is just put the 2 ends into that BWC button or BWC terminals, basically the 2 wires that are going to my wall button. And if it makes a contact closure, the garage should trigger. And so let's test that. I'm just going to stick those 2 wires in there. And as soon as I did that, the garage starts to open. Now, it's really just a toggle switch, so if I do it again, it'll stop the garage. And then if I do it a 3rd time, it will go in the reverse direction and go back down. So we've proven that, yes, this does respond to a dry contact closure, so the GDO White is an appropriate product for this garage opener. Now let's go inside real quick. Before I install anything, I want to set up the garage opener on Wi-Fi, so that once we get it on the ceiling, then we don't have to mess around with it again. All right, so we're going to set up the device on Wi-Fi before we install it in the garage. I'm just going to plug in the power adapter that came with it. And as soon as you plug it in, you'll see the green light. Power light is on solid, and the blue light is blinking slowly. That means it's waiting for a connection. So let's open the Konnected app. Go to add new device, and then Wi-Fi setup. It's already pre-filled my network because I've done this before. So hit continue, and it's prompting me to connect to the setup network, which is going to be named connected dash a bunch of characters. And there it is. So I'll connect my phone to that network. And then once I'm connected to it, switch back over to the connected app and it should detect it. If you get this warning about internet not available, just click OK, it's fine. And then go back to the connected app. And now it's sending the credentials to the device. And it says all set. And once it's done that, your Wi-Fi credentials are set on the device. The setup network will go away and the device should connect to Wi-Fi. And the app should then discover it and let you set it up. Just give that a second for it to scan. Okay, so once the device is discovered in your app, then you'll see a screen like this, which kind of gives you the information, the IP address, and we can rename it. So I'm gonna just call this GDO White. And then we have like a little internal web page with some debugging information. This looks pretty raw right now, but this is going to be helpful when we're setting it up and calibrating it in the garage. So keep that in mind. And then settings is where you can customize the firmware in the app. So in order to do this, we have to hit get started, and that will register it in our cloud service where you can customize the settings and then create a firmware update that you can apply to the device to customize it to your needs, including enabling connected cloud if you want to use it with SmartThings or Alexa. We'll do that later, but let's get it working in the garage first. And now that it's connected to Wi-Fi, I can unplug it, and then once it's powered back up again, it'll automatically reconnect to the Wi-Fi network. So let's go back to the garage and wire it up and then get it working. All right, before we hook anything up, let's talk about positioning and where to mount it. Now, for the optical laser sensor to work, it needs to see the top of the garage when the garage is fully open. So what I recommend is put the garage open, open the garage, and then find a spot on the ceiling so that when you look a straight line down, we're actually hitting the top of the garage. One important thing to note is that it's got to be free of any like beams or supports or anything else like that that the optical sensor might see. So I recommend put this towards the center of the garage, but offset enough, at least a couple of feet from any supports or beams or anything like that, because the sensor is going to basically emit like a laser, like kind of a cone shape, if you can imagine that. And if it catches the edges or reflections of any other anything else within its way, it's going to get some false readings. So as you can see, I've already put the screws here to mount it. That makes it nice and secure. Also, your kit comes with like a double-sided command strip mounting thing, which makes it really easy, so you can take it on and off. And the power adapter has an extra long cable so that you can mount it, you know, towards the center of the garage and still have enough to reach the plug where your garage opener is plugged in. So now that we know where we're going to mount it, let's wire it up. All right, your kit comes with a wire like this. It's about 10 feet long, or 3.5 meters or so. And it's just 2 wires, and it's white, so it should blend in most cases. This one I've cut to a shorter length, but all you really need, like the minimal installation, all we need to do is insert 2 wires into those 2 middle terminals where it says door. See if I can get those in there. All right, and in this case, the polarity doesn't matter. There's basically they're the same. So in the door terminals here, Make sure those are secure. And then the other end is going to go in just kind of alongside the wires for the wall button console. So on this garage opener, it's labeled BWC, and it may be different on yours. So these little push connectors, you can press them in and kind of jam the wire in there. And get it in nice and tight. There we go. So if I gently tug on it, it's not going to come out. That way we know it's making good contact. All right. Excellent. Now let's, before we go ahead and mount it, I'm going to plug it in and we can test it. Okay. So let's test this really quick before we mount it in its final position and calibrate everything, just to make sure that it's good. I should reconnect to Wi-Fi. And while we're testing this, make sure nothing, you don't have any wires hanging in the path of the moving garage door, and that you're behind the motor, so the garage door, when it moves, it's not going to hit you. Once I plug that in 30 seconds or so, it should be online. So I'm going to open the web page, and there it goes. It's loaded up. And if I press the garage door button, that should trigger it. And there it goes. So it doesn't know the state, whether it's open or closed right now, because we haven't calibrated it. But if it says closed, we press the open button, then it should open. So it's working. Now let's like actually wire it up and mount it on the ceiling, and then we'll do the calibration step so it can know the state. Now let's mount it in our mounting position and then plug it in. So now's the calibration step. As you can see, the garage is actually open, but on this little debug web page, it says that it's closed. And that's because our sensor is not calibrated yet. You can look at this value, sensor distance, which is showing about 0.6768 meters. And that's literally the sensor seeing the top of the garage right here. Watch, if I put my hand over that sensor, you'll see the value go down to 0.2, 0.09. What we're trying to get at is the calibrated value of that when the garage is open. And we want to set this sensor calibration equal or as close to as possible as we can get to that actual distance when the garage is open. So I'm gonna just, use my finger to move this slider to set that sensor calibration to about 0.7 or 0.68. But now you can see these values are matching or are very close. And now the garage door, the status says that it's open, which is exactly what we want. And now it should respond correctly to the open and close commands and see the status. So when I press close, you'll hear and see the pre-close warning start, and then the garage will begin to move. And then in 5 seconds, the garage starts to go down. And after a second, you'll see the status change to closed. So it's working great. And now we can open it by pressing the open button, and it will open. And once the garage reaches the fully open position, we should see the status change to open. It takes a second or two because it's double checking, and now it says to open. So, so that's it. That's all really there is to it. to calibrate the sensor, mounted it, and that calibration value is matching the actual value when the garage is open. And that's really all you have to do. And now you can go back to your inside and discover this in Home Assistant, or enable Connected Cloud to sync it to SmartThings or Alexa or any of our other smart home platforms. If you are connecting to SmartThings or Alexa using our cloud service, then you're going to want to enable Connected Cloud. If you are connecting to Home Assistant or Habitat, which uses the native API of the device, then you'll want to make sure that the local native API is also enabled. You can enable encryption on that too, and then on the next screen, you'll get an encryption key which you can paste into Home Assistant so that the communication between the device and your Home Assistant is a bit more secure. If you want to be able to use that local web page like I've been showing you to debug, and also a couple of our integrations, Control4 and HomeSeer, use that local web page REST API, then you want to make sure that this web server is enabled. And here you can set a username and password for that local web server so that it's not just open to anybody that's on your network. And I would recommend that as a security best practice. And then finally, the pre-close warning. The sound that it makes for the 5-second warning is customizable. So is the duration. Now it's got to be at least 5 seconds because that's the requirement by law. But you can change it to more than that if you want to. And then we can also test different sounds, like for example, and when you click on it, you should hear a sample of what the sound sounds like. And we've put a lot of fun tunes in here. Hopefully you'll have fun with customizing the sound of your garage opener. Once we're done messing with our settings, then we hit save and continue. And then I'm going to see a summary of my settings here, and then build now. And what's happening next is we're making a customized firmware for your device and building that on our infrastructure. And that takes 5 or 10 minutes. And then once that's ready, then we'll update the firmware on the device using the app, and you'll be able to, and then those settings will ultimately take effect. And if you're connecting to Home Assistant and you've enabled encryption, you can copy the encryption key here and paste it into Home Assistant. I'll show you guys that in a second. Okay, after a couple minutes, the firmware update is ready. It's going to show me the settings that we're about to apply, and then all we really need to do is hit update now. And then the device should come back online again in just a second. Cool, the firmware is up to date now, so all those settings took effect. And if I want to make changes again, just hit edit new version. So now that that's up to date, let's see if we can get it in Home Assistant. I'm gonna copy my encryption key, and then I'm gonna switch over to Home Assistant. Okay, if you're setting this up as new in Home Assistant, you would go to notifications and then see new devices discovered, and you should see a new device under ESP Home. Since I've already set this up, it's showing me a reconfigure button, but in your case, it would, if it was a new device, it would be a blue configure button. So I'm gonna hit reconfigure, and it's asking me for my new encryption key, which then I'm just gonna paste it from the connected app and submit, and now it's re-authenticated. Cool. So now I can find it in my devices, and this is the one called GDO White. That's what I named it, right? So the garage door is currently closed. We know that because you can tap on this, it says close, and the down button, the close button is grayed out, the up button is enabled. So if I hit that, I hear the garage opening, and the dog does too. Yeah. Don't worry, Finn. Cool. Now that it's open, I can close it from with Home Assistant. Yeah, the dog's gonna freak out. There's a bunch of diagnostic information that Home Assistant will also pull in. Now let's see if you wanted to integrate it with SmartThings. Let's switch over to SmartThings and check that out. Okay, now to set it up in SmartThings, make sure that Connected Cloud is enabled in the settings, which we have done. And then once Connected Cloud is enabled, then all you need to do is add it in SmartThings. So let me just launch the SmartThings app and go to Devices, click the plus icon to add a device, and then we're going to look under Partner Devices because we are a SmartThings partner. And then scroll down to K and look for Connected. Okay, once I hit Connected, it's going to ask me to log in to my Connected account. I'm going to go in with my Google account that's linked. There's the one that we're actually just setting up. So there's the GDO White. And I'll put the room to be garage. Okay, done. So that should have pulled that in. And then let's go over to garage. There's the device. You hear the warning going, and now it's closing. And now it's closed. All right, cool. So that's all there is to it. One of my favorite things about this new product with our new firmware platform is that we have multiple integrations simultaneously. So whether you're a Home Assistant user, a Habitat user, a SmartThings user, Alexa user, or all of the above, Connected is helping you open your garage the way that you want to. That's it for now. See you guys next time with a new product. Bye.